In this tutorial I want to have a look at how we can use the ZeroD technology in Solid Edge to plan out a assembly. So under the Tools menu we have a component structure editor which allows us to build a virtual assembly. So you can actually create individual pieces, or you can utilize existing models. So for example, we have a long conveyor here, so we could just sort of add that in just by dragging across. We could also add a short conveyor and likewise a turntable. We also decide that we need to have a further roller conveyor, but this one isn't actually created. So we can say that we want to create a virtual assembly, give it a name, and add that into our assembly. Then if we click on there and say we'll add a sub-assembly, so we'll call this the frame so that comes in as part of our sub-assembly. We may also want to add a part, which could be the roller, and there'll be several of these. So that sort of gives us a general feel for how we can then make our assembly. So rather than having to create everything from scratch, we can do it all in 2D just to sort of give us an overview of where the assembly is going to go. So if we go to our sketch command and we work off that top plane and go back into our or look at our virtual assembly over here, we can see that if we right mouse click and go to position virtual component, and you can see that we have different planes in here. So if we look at their top view, this has been pre-configured, so we can just add this in and we can place it on the center of the origin. And as you see, that's just given us a 2D representation of that 3D model. We can do the same with the short conveyor. And again, this one has a view that has been created. So if we want to position it, we can hit the A key just to sort of rotate it and then place that one in. Now if we look at the turntable, you can see that we have no pre-configured 2D version. So if we cancel out of that, save our view for the sketch view for the moment, and if we then open up that turntable, I'll show you how we create the virtual sketch. So under the sketch tools there's a component sketch option. What you may do is you may decide that you want to have all the parts shown. In this case it's not a big assembly, so that's quite feasible, but if you've got a big assembly you may not necessarily want to have the full representation of the assembly, so you can hide your components before you go in. But if we go into the component sketch and we want to go off the top plane, which is the view that we're working on, and then under here, under the tools, you have component image, and just accept that, and that has generated our component sketch. So under here in the Pathfinder you'll see that we have a top view. So keeping with the naming structure, we'll just call it top view and save that, close that sub-assembly. Now if we go back and modify our sketch, and if we go in and we go onto our turntable and position virtual component, we can see that it's now come through as a sketch view. So I'll just position this out here somewhere, and then we can use our usual tools. So we could do a horizontal vertical alignment from here to here, and we can then also dimension from here to here, so we can specify how far apart that needs to be. So that's going to be 3.5 meters. Now that we've positioned our existing parts, we need to start working on our virtual assembly, and what we just want to do is just create some geometry about which we can sort of define what's going where. So if we just draw in our sort of outline of the roller conveyor, we can just position that in here. So that's going to be the rough outline of the frame. So what we need to do is we then need to connect that geometry up with the virtual assembly that we have. So we just fence select what we want. If we then say that we want to have a origin in free space, which if in our case is going to be over here in the middle of the turntable, and our key point is going to be over here. So that's now defined and linked this sketch through to that component there. So we've now finished what we need to do in this sketch. So if we exit out, and we need to save this, and we'll call it the line. Okay, so the next stage is to actually publish what we've done, and this goes through and actually creates each of these models for us. So we can specify where we want it to go. If we want to, we can go through and define a different location, but we've got all of these components that need creating, so we go through and publish those. And as you can see, the 3D models have actually been converted or changed from that sketch through, and we also have our assembly here with the relevant parts. So all of these parts, even though they've got nothing in them, have been created. So if we right mouse click and open up this, we can see that if we fit the view and turn on our sketches, we can see that that sketch has been applied in here. So what we can do is we can actually use this profile now to redefine where our assembly is going to go. So for example, what we could do is we could say let's go into our frame. So we'd need to edit the frame design and then use this sketch to generate the frame for the model. So this tutorial hopefully shows how you can design the assembly structure for your design. Even though it may be a large assembly, you can use 2D geometry of existing models as well as building sketch geometry and linking that to models and using that to generate the final model. And this just helps plan things out a lot simpler and builds your part structures and assembly structures from scratch.